Welcome to Ecopreneurship. This is just a recap of what we've done in class. This would be more of a revision to those who have been attending classes, but even those who have not managed, they will definitely benefit. So the first learning outcome, we define entrepreneurship. What is entrepreneurship, and we try to tie it to ecopreneurship, so we also understand as well what ecopreneurship is. So entrepreneurship is when an individual starts and runs a new business venture with the aim of making a profit. Entrepreneurs can thus be defined as follows. They've got ability to identify new commercial ventures, ability to seek change and exploit new opportunities, and all those other things listed there. Then we've got three types of entrepreneurs today: small to medium enterprises, which is SMEs, large corporations, and social entrepreneurs, which are sort of in the bracket of what this module entails. Social entrepreneurs bring about innovation to solve community problems, and you would see that one of the key problems today is environmental degradation, and ecopreneurs, they fall into that bracket because of the reasons that you will discover soon. Then what do entrepreneurs need to succeed? So those are the lists. I think it's quite obvious: money, energy, enthusiasm, the research skills, business skills, and many others. So those are very key for success. And let's look at sustainability, greening, and entrepreneurship. This is where ecopreneurship comes in. And what is ecopreneurship? It refers to entrepreneurship that takes into account environmental issues. You see, so if you look at it, the issue of sustainability. We want to produce goods, but we want this to be sustainable. We don't want to destroy the environment, because without the good environment, everything else won't be possible. So we look to develop new products and services, improve the efficiency of existing firms, new marketing methods, new business models. So some of the things entailed or encompassed in ecopreneurship. Then ecopreneurship as a concept is important because it provides platform for development of sustainable businesses needed in this era of global warming and climate change. Like what I said, we are having global warming, climate change. Recently there was a Paris Agreement on climate change. So all these things, they impact how businesses operate and even the mere existence of humanity. So that's why ecopreneurship, with this emphasis on sustainable business practices, becomes very important because it contributes to that. So you can also read about the evolution and current understandings about ecopreneurship, but one of the key things is that it's a new concept in the management field, and it's because of problems like global warming. Ecopreneurship is rapidly becoming a popular field and has become a discipline in its own right. So that's how some of the reasons why ecopreneurship is becoming more important is the issues of environmental change. Then let's look at characteristics of ecopreneurship. So all green entrepreneurs undertake businesses which have considerable risk. Outcomes of their businesses are often unpredictable, and failure is always a possibility. So they need to identify feasible and well-researched business opportunities. They must plan and implement their ideas. Their business have a positive impact on the natural environment. So there are quite a number of these characteristics, and you can read about them. Then environmental circumstances required for ecopreneurship. We have got innovative groups and individuals who can lead ecopreneurship and take charge of ecopreneurship business ventures. So existence of suitable market niches, then also access to enough human resources, then also access to capital to fund startup businesses and ecopreneurial business growth, and also those are other points below. So that's ecopreneurship and entrepreneurship together. You see, so the key thing is to understand is what is entrepreneurship, different types of entrepreneurs, and also how ecopreneurship comes into play, and why is ecopreneurship becoming important. And as we have seen, it's because of environmental change, global warming, and other things concerning the environment. Then learning outcome 2, it's about understanding the making of the ecopreneurs. How do we end up having ecopreneurs? So we have got two types of ecopreneurs: green ecopreneurs, These are businesses that did not start deliberately as environmentally conscious, but later discovered the advantages of going green, such as innovation, better marketing, and cost reducing, goodwill, and so on. So these are what we call green ecopreneurs. That's the first type of ecopreneurs. Then we've got green ecopreneurs. Opposite of that, these ones from the onset, they started with greening in mind, or the environment in mind. You see, then we've got the difference between the globalized entrepreneur and the ecopreneur. So those are very interesting types of business ventures. So the globalized one, or the global entrepreneur, is sort of a careless entrepreneur. They've got no home. They move around. They leave a lot of environmental damage or a lot of waste behind. You see, as they move around looking for other new places to pollute or to disrupt. So they leave families behind, causing family disruption. They believe in mobility and living your roots, whereas the ecopreneur believes in freedom to create a new environmentally and socially responsible community, believe in improving where you belong rather than living, believe in fair practices, and all those other characteristics. So so it's very important to be able to differentiate between these two. Then we look at cultural factors and examples in ecopreneurship. So if you read about that, you also have to understand what is the cultural perspective regarding ecopreneurship. Then also some of the key elements in this learning outcome are the private sector initiatives that can promote ecopreneurship. So or we can call them incentives if you want to do that. So if good businesses can create their own values by setting limits, that's the first one. Then green strategic innovation, green marketing, green brainstorming for cost reduction, green networking in the community, social entrepreneurship is an extraordinary motivator. So those are the private initiatives that can lead to ecopreneurs. Then also the public ones, we can talk of a changing tax incentives to reward. It's changing tax incentives to reward creation of green startups. So the taxation system can be crafted in such a way that it favors ecopreneurs. Then also building creativity and ecopreneurship incentives in public sector management standards. You see, so that's also very key as well as a public strategy. Then also using ecopreneurship as a strategy for boosting civic competence and social capital. Then also public campaigns against non-sustainable business. Then also so we only have 4, so those are the ones. You can also look for other ones that can the public strategies that can be used to foster or to encourage ecopreneurship. So in this learning outcome, it's important to know both the private and the public strategies to foster ecopreneurship. That's very important from this learning outcome. Then also the difference between the globalized entrepreneur and the ecopreneur, and also the two types of ecopreneurs, the green ecopreneurs and the green ecopreneurs. So the key things from this learning outcome. Then also the third learning outcome is the framework and typology of ecopreneurship. So if you read there, it will explain to you how these frameworks come about. But the focus is usually on the 5 types of ecopreneurs in our case. 5 types of ecopreneurs. We've got the skeptical entrepreneur. That's the first one. Then we've got the copycat. Then the research entrepreneur. Then the determined entrepreneur. Then the accomplished entrepreneur. So you should be able to briefly discuss these ones. Then the typologies. We have got different ones, but the one that we need to focus on is the Dana typology and the Thompson's 4 dimensions of entrepreneurship. So those are very important. That's what you should focus on in this specific chapter, especially the 4 dimensions of Thompson. So you need to be able to explain those. Then the typology of the green entrepreneur. So that falls also under the Dana typology. Then a typology of green entrepreneurship framework of entrepreneurial analysis. So you also need to be able to understand this one as well. As you can see, it's got 4 features. You should be able to explain them together with the graph. So as you can see, this is the economic orientation, then also sustainability orientation. So as you move down, the sustainability orientation. As you move up, there's economic orientation. Economic simply means there's a focus on profit. The sustainability, there's a focus on the environment. Then as you move from left to right, then the soft structure influences, then the hard structure influences. And this leads up to 4 features: the innovative opportunist, the visionary champion, the ethical maverick, then the ad hoc enviropreneur. So these are the 4 that you should be able to come up. These 4 features, you should be able to explain them in line with this table. Okay. Then the way that these things are useful is something that you can also look at, but it's not really examinable, but it's very important for you just to understand some of the challenges or the arguments against these typologies. Okay, then the 4th one is global trends of entrepreneurship. So you will see that globally there are things that are pushing ecopreneurship. The first one is industrial disasters. As you can see in the notes, they give you quite a number of them. These have sort of helped to push for ecopreneurship, you see, so that we do not have these disasters again. So then the need for ecopreneurship arose. Then we've got also convergence of producer and consumer movements. So that's also very important. We've got sort of pressure groups, if I can say that, which are sort of pushing for businesses and consumers to be aware of the environment. You see, for example, businesses, especially in developed countries, consumers, they don't buy specific products because they believe that they were not made in an environmentally friendly manner. That's why even today there's a lot of move away from plastic bags to paper. Plastics. Clicks is a very good example of that. Then the ladder of cleaner production. So there's also an emphasis on this as well. There's got 7 steps. You also need to know them. Then also industrial collaborations and also international regulations. So these are all driving ecopreneurship, you see. Then also assessing the framework of ecopreneurship in a developing country. Okay, let's just remove this. Okay, so that's the diagram. We'll give an example of India. So I'm not going to examine this, but you need to read just to understand how this is a very good example for you to understand how ecopreneurship can be applied in a developing country. You can also read about why environmental entrepreneurship succeeded in India. It's something that maybe you can learn from Botswana, the lesson that you can learn from there. Then the 5th learning outcome, maybe before we go there, so in learning outcome 4, we should be able to explain the global trends for that are sort of pushing towards ecopreneurship. Which are those 5 things. Then also we should be able to explain the case of India. But like what I said, I'm not going to examine this, but you should be able to understand it. But what is examinable is definitely those global trends. Okay, then learning outcome 5 is about venture capital in ecopreneurship. So as we explained in the lecture, we said venture capital, it's capital that is sort of channeled towards startups or new businesses, you see. So it's quite risky, as you will see, but there are people who have who always keep money to invest in this type of businesses because usually they've got very high returns. So let's look at the nature of venture capital. So we've got what we call the pooled fund. Then we also have what we call the direct investment, the business expansion scheme, then also fund of funds. So those are the main ones. So you need to be able to explain them. So it's like this is where new startups in Ecopreneurship potentially find sponsorship or funding or the capital resources that they need. Then they will also put stages of venture capital growth and exit. So you need to be able to explain these stages. The first stage is raising capital, actual capital needed to start a business. Then also investing capital. Then the stage 3, facilitating growth. Stage 4, terminating the capital investment. Then those are the 4 main stages of venture capital growth. So you need to be able to explain them as well, and this is quite examinable. Okay, then the last learning outcome, which is learning outcome 6, talks about the competitive strategies of ecopreneurship or ecopreneurs. And the only thing that you need to focus on in this learning outcome is what we call Porter's 5 forces model. So you will see that it's a very important model because it's used to analyze the level of competition within a certain industry. It is especially useful when starting a new business or when creating a new industry sector. Okay, so if you look at it, it has got about 4 or 5 elements. Threat of new entrants, that's one thing where competition can emanate or can come from. And also bargaining power of suppliers, that's also where competition can come from. Then also bargaining power of buyers. Then the threat of substitute products. Then the rivalry among existing competitors. So you should be able to explain this model. That's what learning outcome 6 is all about. So your module, it's quite a straightforward module. The notes are quite clear, and I don't expect anyone to really struggle. And so this just is an overview of the modules. I've highlighted the key things for each learning outcome, what you need to watch out for in terms of assessments and assignments. Thank you, and I wish you the very best as you prepare for your